Coming from Cincinnati, this is the Spin Lob.
Welcome, everyone, to the Spin Lob, Season 1, Episode 15, the College Edition. This is our last episode for this season, Season 1, but we have many planned for Season 2. Tonight, we're going to college coaching friends, Dan Matulis, head coach for Orange Coast College for men's and women's team, and club coach for South Bay United, as well as Sivan, who is the head coach just up the street for Wittenberg University. The Spin Lob is produced and recorded live by Mike Jones and Nick Helwig. It's supported by the Ohio Squirrels Water Polo Club. You'll never get too old to be in the game. Go nuts. And also by Marlins Water Polo. For the love of the game, there's Marlins Water Polo. The podcast is all about Ohio water polo and how we fit in the national scene. It's a combination of what's going on in Ohio, Midwest, and at the national level. But what would end of a season show without a little recap of where we've been? So, Nick, take it over.
So I don't know if a lot of people actually know how we got started. And literally, this podcast started when Nick and I were trying to down and pass at one of our Squirrels practices back, before everything kind of went shut down with COVID. We just kind of talked about how neat it would be to kind of have this conversation, and just kind of snowballed from there. Started doing a little research on different things, talked with a friend of mine who runs the Near Side Low podcast out of St. Louis, and talking with some other friends. And unlike what my wife actually thinks, we actually have a lot of friends. We said this would be great to kind of talk with all that. And then we picked the theme song. And Mike, where's your theme song from again?
I think I butcher this every time. Audio and Autics. Is that right? Audionautics, 2 words. All right. But just basically from there, just kind of snowballed on how awesome this went. And through the course of about 15 episodes, I think we're on right now, we've had 27 different guests. We had father-son coach duos. We had fathers and daughters who, played under each other, coaches and their former players, Olympians, college coaches, goalie coaches, masters coaches, club coaches. We were across the board and just kind of seeing how – and there's other people we haven't even gotten to yet, just how, people that we can get into and talk with. So I guess, Mike, a good question is, what's the standout episode for you? It's a tough choice here, and I know the 2 people we have on the call today, they're not going to be happy if we don't pick them, of course, but I'm actually going to go with our goalie discussion. I have 2 of them. Goalie discussion between Jack Rea and Ncaa. That was in episode 9, where they talked about how powerful the position of the goalie is and how important that role is in the pool. We all know that because we all trust our goalies for the Squirrels so much that it takes a lot of trust, a lot of foundation of being confident in that role and knowing that you're the backbone of the defense, the last straw. And then the other one, when we had Tony Azevedo on and knowing your teammate, that hit me pretty hard because, we've been playing for such a long time. That's an integral part of this game where you really have to know your teammate, not just how they like the ball to be passed to, whether they're setting or whether they're, getting a cross pass across the cage. But it's also how, you always want to treat all your teammates with respect, but it's how you engage with them and get an edge out of them in the water, get them revved up and ready for the game. I think that was pretty powerful. And that was episode 7 when we talked to Tony. What about you, Nick?
I loved episode 9 with Tom Ray and Ncaa. I think that's fun. I know those guys pretty well, played with Tom's brother, and then just knowing Ncaa from the 5-meter camps and having lots of conversations with him. But I think one of my favorites was actually when, Mike, you were on vacation. Maybe that's why I liked it so much. But Mike was on vacation, so it was just me and Felix McCardo, and then Olivia from Thomas Worthington, and one of her former players, Melanie. And it was just a great conversation going through. It felt very smooth and flowing, and just kind of went there. And if you haven't ever talked with Felix, he could just talk your ear off with water polo, but not, never making it seem like he's better. He's just that conversation like you guys are best friends. Then I actually really liked, and Dan might have about this one, I really liked the conversation we had with Dan and Dave. Knowing both those guys for a long time now and coaching with Dave for a while, it's just kind of fun to hear
their side of things and how it just another great conversation to listen to. And so if you want to check out the Felix one, that's episode what was the episode? That was episode 11. And then the Dan and Dave one was episode 13. So lots of great ones on there. But I think, and Sivan loves this one, we actually talked about this the other day, best moment was when I called out Sivan for talking trash to Maggie Steffens. I think that was the best one. Best moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, Mike, we could just talk me and you forever, but why are we really here today? What's going on?
So the focus of this call is to really talk about how high school juniors and seniors who are trying to vie for that Division 1, 2, 3, and junior college level roster, and they aren't able to really play in this current pandemic, how they can still be engaged with coaches without really a water polo season. As you probably know, the Ohio high school water polo season has been moved to the spring, and we really don't know what's going to happen when it does move. So many question marks. So we just want to get into the minds of two people that are involved with recruiting, heavily involved with coaching, have been down that recruiting path in multiple avenues, whether it's within an ODP program. I know Sivan played for Hawaii. Dan, you played for Long Beach. You've mentored a lot of players out there. And I want to kind of dip my toe into that psychological feeling that these players can't play. How do you stay in front of that coach, or how do you get recruited still? So what we're going to do is actually, we want to kind of talk first about both of their programs and where they fit. So Dan, let's start with you. You coach at the junior college level and you reminded me at the beginning of this call, at Orange Coast College for the men's and women's program, which is great. Can you give us kind of a details about what junior college water polo is? I don't think it's known much within the Ohio arena.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like your comment on the fact that it's really not as well known. Certainly when I was playing in Ohio, I'd never heard of the community college system, and I certainly didn't know that there were athletics attached to it. And so I'll say it this way, the community college system in California is very unlike in other states in that we have competitive athletics. It's relatively large schools, very affordable programs, and they do a really great job of transferring athletes to 4 years in a timely manner and with upstanding academic excellence. So I think that's something I didn't know. I certainly didn't know when I was in Ohio about the size of the athletic departments and the size of the athletic programs. And we're very blessed at Orange Coast College. We have incredible facilities. We have a brand new pool. It's actually longer than 15 meters. It's like a deep 65 meters. We have 2 bulkheads. And so when we're looking at facilities like this, the first time I was actually in Junior Olympics, and this was back in, I want to say 2009, 2010, I was at Golden West College, a local college that's in our league. And we were playing at their pool, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what college is this? And they're like, oh, it's a 2-year college. It's a community college. And I couldn't believe it. I had no idea. And so I think that's probably the biggest piece of information I want to share is the community college athletic system is large. And we do a great job of transferring our athletes. Orange Coast College, it's a variety of opportunities as well. So we have athletes that want to come in and they want to play. They want to improve. We have athletes that want to go Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3. And so we're able to help our athletes get to that next level, whatever it is. I think in particular for Ohio athletes, like why I'm so excited to talk about it is the potential to improve with playing high-level competition on a consistent basis, and then the potential to get seen and to get noticed. Certainly Junior Olympics and ODP, those things do an incredible job of getting you on the national spotlight to get recruited. But say maybe you play in an area where it's not as well known. Well, now you have an opportunity to go to this level to play on a national spotlight and to get seen by coaches. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity.
Dan, the athletic side makes a lot of sense, but I think academically, can you kind of explain what the junior college is as well? So if they're looking at, obviously if we're going to go to college, what does the junior college mean? What does this 2-year college mean for them? What are they turn into?
Absolutely. So great question. So there's really 3 different avenues. The least common avenue I see with athletics is like the trade school side of it. There's certainly a lot of different programs in there. The majority of athletes that we see are working to get their AA, so that's their associate's degree, and that's the equivalent of essentially roughly 60 units of your college completed. So if you're looking to complete your AA then transfer, you're looking at essentially doing what would be your freshman year and your sophomore year in a 4-year system. You're completing those units as well as any potential certificate programs additionally that you want to complete within that time frame, and then it's preparing you to transfer on. And so something that's unique about the 2-year system as well, in addition to saving a large amount of money. So I'm looking right now, it's a little under $8,000 for tuition for out-of-state student for a 2-year college. And it's very affordable. And you're looking at transferring, playing your second 2 years at a 4-year university and then finishing your degree on time. It's extraordinarily important that we prepare students to finish their degrees on time. The other thing I think is interesting is for many colleges and many universities in California, it's very difficult to get in enrollment. And I think it is a nationwide issue where schools are just getting harder to get into. And so it is much easier to transfer if you have a high GPA and you're completing a degree to the UCs and to the Cal States if you're looking to transfer within California. And so I think that that's a great avenue as well. Especially in California, I can't speak on the whole country, but I know in California, schools like the UC systems, even the Cal State Long Beach, when I was there, had one of the lowest acceptance rates, and it's becoming extraordinarily competitive. And so being able to take your undergraduate courses at the 2-year level and be successful at that level with the resources that we provide is a great avenue to help you continue your education.
I actually have a follow-up to that. By playing at junior college level, does that take off eligibility years for a Division 1, 2, or 3 level? Similar.
That's a great question. So your clock starts when you're full-time in college enrolled. So yes, if you do play 2 seasons at the 2-year level, then you would have 2 seasons remaining at the 4-year level. We have cases where athletes, they're standout athletes, and if I don't want to jump down the rabbit hole of talking about qualifiers and non-qualifiers for NCAA right now, but if you are a qualifier, you can transfer after 1 season. And so that's something that we see athletes doing as well. And I think that, yes, so it does affect your NCAA eligibility, but I would just mention off of that, the systems are they're very connected. And so what I mean is the NCAA is obviously the major platform. The CCC2A, which is our division, the California Community College Athletic Association, what we do is very similar. So for example, like things like in the springs when coronavirus hit and they were giving athletes eligibility back, we followed suit with that. So think about it as just it's a different college entity or a different college athletic association, but it works to prepare athletes for NCAA.
Well, and also once you've done your 2 years, unless you're going for victory lap, you've only really got 2 more years of college anyways. So correct. For most students, you're not going to have more than 2 years at the college anyways.
Correct. And we've also seen opportunities where an athlete will come in and they'll say, hey, I really want to play 3 years at the 4-year level. I'm looking to redshirt for a season, which redshirting you delay your eligibility, or you wouldn't start. Your clock would start as a full-time student, but essentially you have 5 years to play 4 seasons. So you would just forego your competition, you'd still be training, lifting, getting stronger, improving your skills, you could potentially play your second year and then transfer with 3. So yeah, there's like little situations where you can kind of manipulate it a little bit, but yes, for the most part, yeah.
All right, so that could have been a whole different call, and I think that might be something we do down the road, Nick. But turning over to Sivan with Wittenberg University, you've been there for several years now. Can you kind of give us some insight on the Division III level and how that all operates?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, well, at the Division III level, that's where you see the highest rates of athlete participation. So it's one of the biggest divisions, which I don't think many people know, especially in water polo. And it's rapidly growing, right? Like we are a newer program, so we are entering into our 3rd year as a varsity program. And there are a number of others that are, continuing to have the sport, which is great to see that growth, especially at this level. And so it's definitely a very exciting time for our water polo community, but especially at Division III. And I would say, especially here at WIT, the emphasis in Division III is to have this balance of rigorous academics and high-level competitive athletics. And so I would say that's a key quality, a key aspect of, the characteristics of this level. For us too, we're a Division III school, but I would say there's the same emphasis on performance, same kind of training as you would see at different or higher levels, so you can have that experience, but still be in a place where you can still have that balance and a real college life, if you will, right? Where you can engage in a lot of different, again, rigorous academics and, some different aspects of college life, like, being a part of research projects and, investing your time in sort of your other areas of interest as well.
You had, I remember in a conversation we had one time, we talked about, you guys are a university, so you have a lot of those majors. And did you guys mention that you had a marine biology major? Was that something you had said to me one time, or is
we do. And a part of some of those unique offerings that we have at WIT, we do have marine bio. I actually currently have a student athlete that's at a marine research lab studying at Duke for the semesters. We have a lot of really exciting opportunities that you can do and gain some of those more of those leadership qualities beyond, just in the water, right? And so we do have marine bio and some exciting opportunities that coincide with that.
Does that fit for like all Division III? I don't know if we can lump every school in, but you're still talking that university level that you have those majors. Just like every big school doesn't have a program you necessarily want to go into. It's the same thing for Division III schools, correct?
Right. Yeah. So every Division III program has maybe some unique offerings, right? Like with us and that marine bio program or some of our other experiential programming. That's something specific to us at WIT. But a lot of Division III programs have their own sort of strengths and qualities about them too. But again, I would say it really, in the level overall, offers that balance between those high academics, right, and still being able to compete at a high level as well.
Okay, so my next question is kind of for both of you guys, and you can chime in on when you want on this. And this is kind of a big recruiting question, especially for seniors. A lot of them were counting on this fall being a way to kind of do a showcase as they're applying to schools, but now they're not going to have that because they pretty much have to have their decision done before the season starts. What can they do right now to help their recruitment chances without being able to get new game film in, or even be able to invite coach to come watch some of their games.
Right. Yeah. So, I would say email is more than just a part of the recruiting process right now, as we all deal with the impacts of, the coronavirus pandemic. Digital communication is now, of the few ways that we as college coaches can still actively recruit student athletes. Like you said, while a number of tournaments, showcases, camps, and even visits at some levels remain on hold, we are relying heavily on digital communication to reach out to recruits. So if you haven't already started communicating with coaches, now is the time to start. If you have, continue to build those relationships with coaches and stay on top of these conversations. Is a really big recommendation of mine. And, I know you said some people have limited film and stuff, but this is also a great time to update your existing film and create additional videos where you can, right? So if you do have access to a pool in whatever capacity, maybe you're sending some clips of your fundamentals and sharing what you're doing and different approaches that you're taking during this time with coaches, and not being afraid to ask coaches about their different approaches during this time as well and what they're looking for during this time. These are great ways to demonstrate commitment to growth and resilience in the face of adversity and, your passion for the sport, right?
Dan, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, sorry, I just realized I was muted. Yes. So, I absolutely agree with Sivan talking about email. Digital communication is key. I think one thing I've been adding a lot recently, people ask me about college recruiting, I think it's having a little bit of patience and understanding that there's quite a bit of moving pieces, obviously, with this pandemic and how athletics is responding to it. And so the reason I say that is I've had athletes say like, hey, I emailed this coach and I haven't heard back yet. And then they get discouraged, or maybe they get bothered by it or upset. And I think the reality is go into it understanding that, a lot of these schools are being reached out to by, in some cases, hundreds of kids. And so I think that not taking it personally, or maybe sometimes it has to be multiple emails. And I think being persistent. And so, like, for example, if I email a school and I want to go, if I don't hear back in the next day, I don't think an appropriate response would be like, oh, well, they don't want me, so I'm not going to go there. From talking to a lot of coaches at the Division I level, it's something where there's quite a few moving pieces, like I mentioned. So I think having some patience, having some persistence, so maybe send that extra email or that follow-up email, talk about what you are doing. I think that's a really great approach. And then I do think that I wanted to touch on just the two-year system. Community college recruiting is usually a little bit later. So there's two waves, obviously, like in the same time frame as like the four-year system, you'd recruit in this time, but it's very common at the two-year level that recruiting happens later in the year. In this situation, the reason why is because maybe you did have your heart set on going to the Pac-12 school, for example, and maybe they had a class that came in and you were on the cusp, but it didn't work out, and you're really interested, right? Like you really want to go to that next level. That's really where the two-year college system can be a great opportunity for these athletes, where they can come continue to develop, continue to play, and be eligible to transfer. And so I do think that, with this pandemic, looking at like, okay, maybe you are in the winter time and you're starting your spring season since the Ohio seasons have been pushed back, and you don't feel great about any of your options. I do think that the two-year college system is something to explore and something to consider. I can tell you that I've had quite a few athletes, quite a few recruits come in of like June, even as late as July, after they've graduated. So I do hopefully that gives people a little bit of a peace of mind that there are opportunities that are extended a little bit down the road. So really just hopefully to calm some of the panic or the anxiety, because certainly with my club athletes, I feel it from them, and I feel badly because it is something where they're not playing and they want to get into their schools. And so it is an anxious time.
So Sivan, you mentioned videos and stuff like that, staying in the technology realm. Are there platforms out there that, and same to you with you, Dan, that kids can use to be able to get you a video pretty quickly? Maybe it's YouTube, or maybe there's a special platform that you've seen before, or like Recruitment. I'm just making up a name here. Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number, right? It's all about goodness fit and do your own research in terms of those different platforms to find what works for you. But like you said, YouTube is a way that I've had prospects share film with me. Huddle is another great easy way to do that as well. I've working with your coaches or maybe even your team manager who has access to tons of film, right? Even being able to, not ideally, right? Sending it raw like something, right? Giving us some sort of substance is really huge. I think in terms of being able for us to get a better feel for you as a player and, ways to see how you fit in too, and just not being afraid to, connect with those different types of resources that you do have, right? I remember somebody sharing with me when I was going through this process. They were like, why don't you just go connect with, the students at your high school that are looking at going into, communications or media relations and stuff, right? It's something that even they could use as a way, in helping you, right? But for them, building their resume even to, right, like editing film and doing different things and getting those clips too, right? So some different creative ways that you could get us film. And again, so that we can continue to have those conversations and create some additional video, right?
So basically, what Nick and I were doing at practice today, doing the lunges, we don't want to send that kind of video. Am I right?
Maybe not necessarily of any of us doing those skills, but some prospects, I'd be willing to see some of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you guys think? So kind of going with that, Mike, I'm glad you kind of mentioned that. Like Dan or Sivan, what should they send to you if they can edit all that stuff? They have film. What is gonna? Do you want a highlight reel? What do you want to see from these players?
I'll jump in this. I love the question because it cracks me up. Sometimes I've told stories about this. I've gotten film before of essentially it's short clips, right? So people are very good with editing. So short clips of like all these goals scored, and then there's like a cool soundtrack to the back. But really, as a coach, sometimes you're like, wow, I'm just watching this athlete pump their fist quite a bit after they score goals, which whatever, it's exciting. But in all honesty, and I can't speak for every coach because everyone's a little bit different. Sometimes I really like, if I'm in a serious conversation with an athlete, I want them to just send me a quarter of them playing. And so it gives me an opportunity to watch how they actually are in a game, because maybe if you have like 2 minutes of really great editing film, but the thing is, I need you for 8 minutes in a quarter and 4 quarters in a game. And so that's me personally. I like to have a larger sample size. I like to have like a whole quarter and actually watch, like, how's your defense? How's your counterattack? How do you fit in with the team? What's your presence in the water? And so those things are all very important to me. So I'm glad you asked that question.
Sivan, what do you think? What's when you get me like, this is great. This is how I like to see the film because it shows me what the players like.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. For me, my personal preference is to get that quarter, right? Being able to see, especially right now, where, you know, this is a time where most of us would typically be spending a lot of time on deck, right? Recruiting. I want to be able to see, that whole quarter, right? To see those full 8 minutes, right? To see where you fit in. So that's my preference as well. I would agree with what Dan is saying. Because sometimes you do get highlights, and we get to see it's a highlight. It's the best. Your best qualities, right, are coming out in the game, and those are great. Of course, I want to see those moments, but I want to see how you respond to different situations and stuff. Should you be a team member, right, and get a roster spot, it allows me to help meet you where you're at, see where you fit in right away, sometimes it also shows me the areas, right, where you wouldn't necessarily do that for us, too. So I agree with what Dan is saying, but every coach is different, right? And they'll guide you through that. But I would say most coaches would like to see game film, right, as opposed to some of those highlights.
So moving on to our next topic, without really a true season, and if there is any kind of season, the kids might just be swimming laps. What are some things can a player do right now to stay active with water polo from a physical perspective? What is best to keep the body in shape without practicing with their team? And Sivan, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, I know you and I, Mike, have talked about a number of different ways that this could look like, right? And right now is a time, again, where most of us would typically be spending a lot of time in the water traditionally, right? Whether it be with your high school team or club team, generally this is a time where you would gain a lot of valuable experience, finding new roles, expanding existing ones, and for new leadership to step up. And those are things that we can continue to look towards those experiences. But given the current status and impacts of COVID all across the country, we really have to adapt and get creative. Set up a routine, continue to be a great teammate, and be a student of the game. Recognize how important it is to take care of your body when things are difficult, like during this time. And if you're somebody that does have pool access, that's great. You can continue to focus on a lot of fundamental skills of the game in the water. And remember, it takes, for all of us, it takes as little as 2 weeks to start losing, and some even say less than that, but it can take months to get back to where you started. So committing to doing something at least 30 minutes a day, 5 to 6 days a week, until you can transition back to a more regular schedule with your team, you can at least maintain your fitness at a minimal level, right? And take it day by day. Think about your continued progression rather than eliminating it, right? Again, if you have access to a pool, great, get reps in on shots, maybe find your specialty shot during this time, continue to build your swim base, do some lunge work like we did, and if you don't have access to a pool, you can still use the ball up against the wall and focus on ball handling skills and hand-eye coordination drills on land. Maybe add a balance ball in there to emphasize those skills while engaging your core, and get some more of that stability work in there. Maybe loop in your family and set up a mock cage and take shots on your siblings and let them take shots on you. If you have a weight room, focus on your strength, right? Do you have a hill nearby your house? Can you do hill sprints? Can you mix it up with a long run or sprints? Maybe go on a bike ride. You can also tie in some routine to do deep stretching and mobility work, and get your mental reps in. Watch a ton of film, be a student of the game, like I said, and it can be yours, it can be college level, it can be international games. There's just so many different ways that you can show that you're adapting to these times, and continue to focus on your goals in the sport, right?
Yeah. That's a great answer. Dan, do you have any insight on staying active, even if you can't be with your team, and even your pool might be completely shut down? You don't have access to a pool. What kind of things could you do as a player?
Yeah, honestly, I think Sivan answered that perfectly. So many really great insights. I think a few things that I would want to echo, just to really emphasize, would be core strength. I think core strength is extraordinarily important. If you do have access to a pool, obviously swimming base, swimming is an extraordinarily important skill. But I really, really like uh, mentioning flexibility. I think that flexibility is something that a lot of athletes understand is important, but sometimes it gets put on the back burner. And this is the time. This is the time to really work on your flexibility. And so, some examples I would talk about is, in particular to water polo players, your hip flexibility is extraordinarily important, because the more flexibility you have, the larger of a range of motion you can have in your egg beater kick. And if you have a larger range of motion, then you're actually moving more water in your egg beater. Well, that means you have stronger legs, right? And so you can start to win those wrestling matches when you're locked up with a defender and offensive player. And so I think that's like a hugely important skill. But we could also talk about flexibility within the range of motion for shooting. We understand that if we have a long range of motion, then we can generate more power. And so I would really encourage athletes to work on stretching. And then I really like that she talked about ball handling. I think something that every athlete for water polo should be doing is getting reps in with the ball every day, whether it's you're laying on your back and just throwing up the ball and watching the backspin, or you're throwing the ball against the wall. I think it's really great to have that connection between the hand and the water polo ball. And then as far as mental reps, I think mental reps is everything. It's extraordinarily important. We have a unique culture here where we have a lot of water polo players play the game, that love the game, but they're not necessarily fans of the game. And obviously the reason why, on the men's side, like they're developing nationally side as well, but there hasn't been a huge professional water polo league in the United States. And so what's unique now with this time is we can start to become like some of the European countries that they grow up being fans of clubs, because now we can watch water polo online. And there's so many different avenues we can watch. And so I think to actually become a fan of the game, just like we would, my brother and I, we watched a lot of NBA, college basketball. We watched a lot of football, and you start to learn a lot about the game. Especially we'd watch quite a bit of NFL when we were younger, and you start to know all the ins and outs of the rules and the situations and what great players do, things like that. And so I think that if you can start to watch professional water polo, the highest level water polo, you can start to have a similar understanding.
Going kind of along with that, both of you guys mentioned, becoming that fan of the game, and there's so much stuff out there. How do you have you talked with your players about not feeling overwhelmed, that they feel like they have to see every drill or every game, like the anxiety, especially being kind of home, or, Dan, before the call, you were talking about, you guys being kind of shut down for so long. How have you guys worked with players, or what can players do to kind of manage maybe their anxiety, or they're just feeling overwhelmed by not knowing exactly what to do?
Yeah, I think that it's having an understanding that we're all in this boat together. And I think, I would even encourage coaches to, encourage your athletes and support them. And that's certainly my role as well with my athletes that I have is, hey, we're in this together. We can be proactive in some ways, Zoom meeting sessions like that, personal goal setting. We talked about some of the physical things you can do outside of the pool, but having an understanding that, nationwide, we're in this pandemic together. And so there's really no need to feel overwhelmed. I know it's easier to say than perhaps someone that might be experiencing it. But then the other side would be looking at some of these, when we look at social media, there's a lot of good stuff out there. You're absolutely right. There's tons and tons of information, things. And I think I would encourage athletes to almost look at it instead of like something they have to commit to or something they need to be doing. Have it be something in your life that, okay, well, what's important to me right now? My academics, my mental health, my physical fitness. We're taking care of those areas. And then anything that you see online, at least for my athletes, I think should be like things that are fun, things that are extra time. It shouldn't be like I have to watch this many episodes or I have to watch this drill and do this drill because I see it on Instagram. I think it should be something that's done for fun. In fact, talking about like watching games, an easy way to watch games, and hopefully it is fun. You just on YouTube, LEN water polo. LEN is for the European aquatics. There's a channel, and so it updates games quite a bit. That's just one of many avenues. But again, like if I'm telling athletes, like, hey, go check out games, it should be fun. Just like the NBA playoffs right now. I don't know if you guys are NBA fans. Like I get to watch these playoff games, and it's fun to watch, right? It's recreational, and so that's what I would say.
Sivan, anything that you're doing to help mentally or to work with anxiety with your players right now?
Yeah, I'd say, obviously every day we see new news. It's changing every day, right? What we can and can't do. So a big thing that I try to echo and what Dan is touching on is controlling the controllables, right? There are clear things in your day-to-day routine that you can take control of, like your effort, like your attitude, and the energy you're bringing into each day, right? Are you working on being a fan of the game? What does that look like? And those are things that you can control. I talk often about creating a routine for themselves, right? Making sure, now with school starting, it's a little bit easier, right? When your classes are, when work is, when practice might be and stuff. But for everybody who's listening that may not have that sort of carved out for them, that's something that I would add on is just creating a routine for yourself. A lot of these different skills and things that I'm talking about can be a part of that, and I hope would be a part of that if you're looking to play at the next level. But that's a big thing. And another thing, when this first all happened, right? I talk about being an athlete for life, right? Beyond college. My hope for my athletes is that they continue to have relationship to, sports, but hopefully especially water polo, right? Like we all do, and so I think that finding different ways to have a relationship with the sport is something that's also kind of exciting about this time as well, right? We talk about all these creative different ways we can still use to grow in the sport mentally, physically, right? And all the platforms and games that we can watch, right? You talk about Ncaa. Ncaa has a lot of really great content. I was on before with Maggie, and her and Tony have 6-8 Sports, which is a free app. Cap 7 has Tip of the Week. There's tons of stuff on FINA between games and even for coaches and athletes, right? USA Water Polo has a lot of quality content, CWPA, you name it, right? So those are just some of the things that I talk about with my players, and I would suggest for, high school athletes, right? And all people involved, coaches, parents, players, admin, in terms of with everything going on and sort of helping with that anxiety.
I agree. As a coach, I completely agree with both you guys on what you're saying. That especially with that starting school back gives us maybe a little more sense of normalcy to help out a bit. So as we're kind of wrapping up this last episode, Dan, any last pieces of advice to give to prospective players and players looking to continue on?
Yeah, I think just a simple piece of advice that it's a process that takes time. So I think that, obviously in society we like to have fast transactions, but I think the recruiting process, just understanding that it is a process that takes time, it helps give athletes peace of mind. It reduces some of the panic. And then what the last thing I would say as well, the recruiting process, and a few of my athletes that have gone through the process already can agree, is it really is a privilege. It's a tremendous privilege. Looking at colleges, talking to coaches, it's extraordinarily stressful time, and you might not even think about it during the moment, but looking back, it's really this incredible opportunity that you're at the peak of your high school career. You're doing such a great job that you have the opportunity to talk to coaches about playing at the next level. And so kind of taking a step back and realizing, like, wow, this is a tremendous experience. And this is an experience that a lot of athletes don't necessarily get to have. So I think just having that perspective and having gratitude is really helpful for athletes.
All right, Sivan, you have the last word of the guests of our first season. So no pressure. What do you got for our players?
No pressure, but don't mess this up, right? But gosh, I just love what Dan said, right? Gratitude. That's, I think just expressing gratitude, especially during this time, is so huge, right? Like for me, we think about when we come into practices, for instance, we do a lot more swimming, we do a lot more conditioning, but I'm so grateful that we even have the opportunity to be in the water, right? To be outside, even though we're practicing these, doing it at social distance and all these other things, right? That have sort of become the new normal. I'm so grateful for those aspects, right? And those same things can be applied to, whatever situation and relationship you're having to the sport or in the recruitment process. I do like the idea of making sure that you're patient, your persistence during the recruitment process, and then communication. Just don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Work with, the coaches, whether it's myself or someone else, Dan, whoever, right? And figure out what works for the both of you, right? Are you more comfortable texting? That's great. Let's text. Let's maintain those lines of communication and keep it consistent, right? I think those are just huge components of being successful in the recruitment process as an athlete, right? And for coaches as well. So that's something I would add as well.
Well, I cannot thank both of you so much. Thank you, Dan and Sivan, for helping us wrap up season 1. In this episode, we talked about so many different topics about the Division III level, the junior college level, and all the complexities around that. What a great opportunity. We talked about, during a pandemic, how to still be engaged with a college or a college coach and staying in front of that coach and giving them updates, persistent but not impatient. And what to do from a physical standpoint if you don't have access to a pool or if your season's been moved to the spring. All the social media and video and content that's been out there for years, we can really start taking advantage of it even more because we aren't able to play. And so there's a lot of valuable information out there. And then just hearing the insights from an anxiety perspective from two people that really have been through the recruiting process, maybe not been through it during a pandemic, but they know what it takes and they know that how valuable they can still be in front of a college coach if you can't physically meet them, greet them, and have a season. So I can't thank you guys enough. So we're gonna finish this episode off. First of all, we're gonna wish all the kids starting back to school in the next couple weeks, whether it be tomorrow or in the next couple weeks. Be safe, wear a mask, stay away from each other, and do your best, because I think, as Nick just alluded to, going back to school is starting to feel like normalcy again. And my kids are going to go back tomorrow, and I've already had that sit down with them about being safe and wearing a mask and being respectful to others. Don't get frustrated. It's going to be scary for them, and I feel for them, but I think it's going to be good when they come home and they say, you know what, Dad, it wasn't that bad. I was happy I was at school, because they haven't seen friends for months. Just want to make sure you check out all of our season 1 on our YouTube channel, Cincinnati Water Polo. It's out there. It's public. It's easy to find if you just Google it. And we'll be back soon with season 2 with more guests, more stories, probably some returning guests like these two, and much more about water polo. Thanks again for all of our guests to come in. So from a closing credit standpoint, the Spin Lab is produced and recorded live by Mike Jones and Nick Helwig. It's supported by the Ohio Squirrels Water Polo Club. We'll never get too old to get in the game. Go nuts. And also by Marlins Water Polo. For the love of the game, there's Marlins Water Polo. Our theme music is produced by Jason Shaw at audionautics.com.
Yes!
And I will see you next time on the Spin Lab. Thank you.